everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. In case you want to find me on social media or Facebook, you can find me at Justin Bizzarro, and you can find the podcast at Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs on Facebook and Instagram. And actually, you can find me now on TikTok at Justin Bizzarro as well. So today I have with us Andi Biron of Biron Herbal Teas. How are you doing today, Andi?
Good. I'm good.
I hope there in Macon, Georgia, you aren't having the same type of snowstorms that we're having in Colorado right now.
No, actually, today was a really nice day. It's been up and down, but it's a really nice day, and I can't imagine dealing with the snow.
Yeah, no, it's been a very snowy year here in Colorado. Last year, we barely got any snow, and people were not going to the mountain skiing. And then this year, we've had, I don't even know how much. Thanksgiving was a whole, foot and a half, I think, of snow, which was fun for Thanksgiving, but just a nightmare to deal with. So pretty cool. So, Andi, what I want to do is, anyone who doesn't know, Andi was the first episode we ever did on the podcast as an interview. So it was episode 2. So that was really cool. So I recommend everyone go back and listen to that. But Andi, could you give everyone a quick abbreviated version of sort of how you got into making your own herbal teas?
Yeah, I got into it. Really, I got a degree in homeopathy, and as part of that, there were a lot of Ayurvedic practitioners and crossovers, and I kind of really started to love some of these Ayurvedic herbs, and I made teas out of these Ayurvedic herbs. And I had a girlfriend that I made a tea for, and it was our first tea, Love and Laughter. It was like our flagship tea. And she was going through a horrible breakup, and so I made her this tea, and it really helped. And then word kind of spread, and everybody wanted our Love and Laughter tea. And that's really just what happened. And then that kind of forced us to review, things like, what other herbs I wanted to use. And we started looking at sourcing, and we started talking to some consultants in the industry, primarily the tea industry, figuring out how many blends we wanted to go to market with. We did 4, and, we started with 4 blends, and now we have more than 4. We have about, if you count our loose leaf, about 15 blends. And so it was really a slow process for us. I was still working full time, and I had just gotten married, and I had babies in between. And so for us, we just kind of grew really slowly, and we started off doing markets primarily. Like in Macon, there's a market. It's a farmer's market. That's the best way to explain it. And so we did some farmers markets, and then there were a couple local specialty shops that started carrying our stuff, and we just kind of started that way. And then we, opened an online retail shop, and then we started really pursuing the path that we thought we should pursue, which was, talking to the big box boys. And however, we have reassessed, and that's not the path we're going to be pursuing. Not that, clearly if they came knocking at our door, we have to look at the situation. However, what happened with us is that we spent several years kind of mired down in this preconceived notion that you have to be on the shelf at a large retailer to have quote unquote made it. And I think that is not where we're at now. And I think as we gain more experience and really took, back that ability to define who we are as a brand and who our specialties are, and as we got to know the tea market better and really became what we would consider, kind of leaders versus, followers in the industry, we decided that for us, the best thing would be to focus more online and to focus on some of our other channels that we have. So we have a retail channel, and now we have built out a factory, which I know I talked about last year. So it's operational, up and running, and we've co-packed for some other brands. So we have a co-packing arm where we're able to help other artisan brands bag their tea which is really cool. And as part of that, we've focused on a green initiative, meaning that our packaging, our bags are biodegradable, made from a soy log, and our overwraps are also biodegradable. And our tins have always been recyclable and made from recycled materials. So from that standpoint, we've always been green. But now we're able to really offer this green packaging to other artisan brands and help them, along and grow too. And, that's something that we're proud to offer. And then we have a hospitality line, a single-serve line that we're able to focus on now too. So we can, be in hotels and coffee shops, and that way, kind of reach people in a broader perspective versus, just kind of being in the tea aisle at a Kroger or a Publix or whatever. So we have refocused, and I do think that, from our standpoint, it's much better because it allows us more bandwidth. So that retail avenue was just taking up so much of my time dealing with brokers and distributors. And what it came down to, honestly, was that we just weren't really able to make money doing that, selling that way. So I think, when you look at it and it becomes a business and something that you want to sustain you versus a hobby, you start to make some, I would say, real world choices. And you have to kind of look at things and figure out, how you're going to sustain as a brand and support your family versus just, making tea so people can enjoy it. And not to say our first and foremost goal is always to be able to offer a product that, people enjoy. However, we are looking at it as a business now as we kind of grow up as a brand. And, I think evolve in my mind from tea maker to, businesswoman, which is, something over the past year that has kind of happened to me. It's been kind of a slow, organic process. But for sure, I think building out the factory and having that machinery and then really getting so involved in the industry, from building it out to figuring out how to source all the materials we need to, now trying to source teas direct from the farms, they call them tea gardens. So I think from our standpoint, we are really growing as a brand and really, what we would look at as leaders in the brand, able to help other startups and smaller, newer brands.
And I love that. And are you ever going to maybe consider doing your own tea gardens and further vertical integrating your process?
It's so worthy. So we just had a landscaper come. We have a historic house that we renovated, and we renovated the commercial kitchen we renovated the garage into a commercial kitchen. It's now a honey house. So we have hives. We have about 10 hives. And we've started doing some infused honeys, it's a new product that we've been doing. My husband's the beekeeper, and he loves the bees. And as part of that, we're really looking to see, how we can kind of landscape the area. And we started, looking at, what are the best kind of flowers for the bees. But as looking at that, we started to talk about camellias and things like that. And the tea plant is part of that family. And so we're going to see if we're going to try. And as part of our landscaping efforts, just plant a few of the tea plants to see how they do. I know that I've spoken to a few other people who have planted them, but they haven't harvested them. So I know they grow in this area. I just don't know in terms of harvesting them how that looks. And so I think if we kind of grow them here and see how they do, that's our first step, just, whatever, for fun. And then we can kind of see if it's something that we'd want to pursue. However, that being said, tea in and of itself, I honestly feel like I might be doing myself a disservice by growing my own teas. Some of the other herbs we tried to grow lavender, and we just weren't able to do it. Our lavender burned. And so it just got fried in the sun. And so it just, on this lot of land, we just couldn't do the lavender. And we were trying to grow some of the other herbs too. We started to grow our own rosemary and things like that for a couple of our teas. But in terms of tea, I think, it's kind of a sticky situation, primarily because the best tea, I think there's a Chinese saying that says, the best tea comes from the mountains. So really, the best tea, and it's true, comes from the mountains. And so, we're in a valley. So that doesn't help our chances of creating great tea. However, I know, and they do grow some in Charleston, and I think in Hawaii they grow some. I know in Hawaii they grow some because we actually have spoken to them about it. And in the Seattle area, they used to grow it, but they're no longer wholesaling it. So there are a few areas in the United States where they grow tea. However, a lot of these tea gardens have been growing tea for centuries, and, they've kind of cultivated their own species of plant, so to speak, that produces a very distinct tea taste. So the best way for me to say it is that even if we did grow and produce our own tea, I don't think we'd get the quality that we can get by sourcing it somewhere else. I mean, just by the nature of the maturity of the plants and by the fact that, for hundreds of years, they've been seeding these same plants to create a very specific taste. So I don't know. I mean, that's a tough question. We'll see how.
One of the things that I think is so cool is that you're willing to just try it, and you don't know. I mean, I've heard the same thing that you've said, that tea grow better in the mountains, and everyone knows that, but you actually don't know what'll happen in Georgia or what'll happen when you try it. So you may come up with something that maybe it's a different kind of tea flavor or whatever, or it complements some of your other herbal ingredients differently. So I'm very interested to see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. And I mean, I think, first of all, the tea plant is beautiful. So, I mean, we're not going to go wrong. It's going to be a beautiful shrub regardless. However, I think that we will try and to harvest a few leaves and see kind of what we get from it.
Yeah, and I want to give a quick shout out to your husband, Roland, as the beekeeper. I've met him a few times at the Flavor of Georgia, so he deserves a shout out. And obviously, he has one of the more interesting jobs. He's willing to go out there with the smoker and go get the beehives and the honey. So pretty interesting. But I love how you guys are infusing the honeys with herbs.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we really wanted. I mean, our honey is it's good honey. Meaning, and we don't have cotton honey or Tupelo. Like, we just don't have those trees around us. However, we do have just a general wildflower, and the quality of the honey is good. Our bees are really happy, and we try to keep them happy. One of the other things that we decided to do is, because we have all of these great organic fresh herbs that we source for the teas, like, why not infuse it? And it took a while. I would say it took us a couple of years to kind of figure out how to do it. But it's nice. Like, it's not overwhelming. We don't have to really whip or do anything to the honey. We just put them in these kind of clear barrels, and we let it sit in the sun with the whole herbs for about 3 weeks. And then we have a 7-filter process. So we have these totally fine filters, and we process and filter it about 7 filters. And then it just has that natural honey, but retains some of the essence of the herb. So, like the cinnamon, we have a cinnamon rose, and it has that spice. And we have a ginger anise, and it's also spicy a little bit. We have an elderberry honey too. We infuse with elderberries. That is good. It has a little bit of that sourness from the elderberries, but I mean, I think it's a super nice flavor. And we're kind of looking at it as supercharging the honey with all these great benefits from the other herbs.
You're actually like the third podcast I had. 3 out of the last 4 podcasts have had elderberries in their product, which is a coincidence. I didn't go aiming that, but the benefits on the herbal side of elderberries are enormous in fighting flu and everything like that. And then you have the honey, which helps fight allergies from an herbal medicine health standpoint, which I think is pretty cool. You've just combined 2 for like this superpower.
That's right. That's why we did it. And we also did it because elderberries are super easy to infuse in the honey. We tried lavender. We tried a lot of different things, but the lavender would just soak up the honey, and we couldn't really filter it. So it just happened to be that elderberry has these great qualities. Plus, it's easy to filter out. So, just kind of worked. So for us, but we had tried some other variations that were not successful.
And so what made you decide to make the leap into honey? Because last time we talked, you were in tea, and then you were building the facility to go into co-packing. So have you guys always had hives, or is it something that just progressed recently, or you've been talking about it for a while?
We had been my husband, actually it was a good friend of the family had hives, and he passed away about 3 years ago, and so Roland would go help him with his hives. And then we inherited his hives and his cat, by the way. And we ended up really getting those hives, and that's kind of how we started with hives, I guess. And however, Roland had to learn a lot about it. I mean, I really am not involved in the hives. I mean, much because I don't have a suit. I mean, I'll go out there if he tells me to do something and do something to them. And I've only gotten stung once, I will have to say, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But he's out there much more with them. He really just kind of learned from our friend's name was Jim. He learned from Jim, and then he just kind of lost a lot of hives and just learned through that process about how to find a queen and how to requeen. And, when he felt like he had to, clean the hives and moths and these wax moths and all of these other kind of things that happen, he just kind of learned by doing it. And then as he kind of started to be able to requeen hives and he started to get healthy hives, we were able to just grow hives on our own. And, 1 turned into 3, turned into 7, and now it's 10. And I don't know how many we'll get this spring and summer, But that's kind of how it started. And I think Roland's always liked doing it. It's something that you can do early in the morning. He's a morning person. And, he can just kind of put on the suit and just go out there and not pay attention to anything else and just kind of play with the bees. That's what we call it. We say, he's daddy's playing with the bees. So I don't know.
So I love that.
There was a lot of forethought.
Yeah, it just sort of happened. I think there's a lot of that in being entrepreneurs, and it's sort of been your story, is that it started off with the herbal teas, and then it's sort of gotten into co-packing, which has given you another business, which has led to maybe exploring the herbal garden concept and further vertical integration. And then also now the bees, which, somewhat that you took an interest in, or Roland took an interest in, but now it's being infused with the same herbs that you're using in the teas, which I think is really cool. Right. And so the other part I like about the bees is if you grow this herbal garden, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume the bees are going in the same herbal garden that are then making the honey that then you're infusing back with the herbs. So there's this weird circle of farming that's going on there.
Yeah, and I think that's why. So we were talking to the landscaper yesterday, and, I think that the more I learn about tea and read about tea, the more I love botany in general. I love herbs. I love all of that. And so, I think that's why I love tea, I guess, and, making it is because it just gets me like super excited when I can kind of not only read about medicinal uses, but, the history of the herb and where it came from and how it grows. And like I said, everything about the botany, and it's so cool to me. So, I think that camellias in general, just because, the tea plant is a camellia, has been something now that I'm super into, and all the different variations and types. And so I think that we talked about planting a huge amount of camellias. Like I said, it's going to make the bees really happy. They just have such a long bloom, which is always good for bees. And, I think that's what we talked about. So we will have a huge amount of camellias on our property very shortly, and we'll see what it does to the honey. I mean, I think it'll only enhance the honey, but you can tell the color will change. It will change based on the flora that we have around the house, for sure.
Now, let me ask a very big question, because, and I'm going to go off track for a second, but I think it's just when I hear you talk, there is this enormous entrepreneurial spirit inside of you, and the vertical integration and the bees. Yeah. And, you know, they talk about it. Sometimes we don't even know we're entrepreneurs, which is probably when we're the best entrepreneurs, when we're not actually trying to be. We're just trying to do what we like. But you have this way where you're finding ideas and concepts within something. I mean, you're taking something that the bees and the flowers, and they have a longer bloom cycle, so there's more, the bees are going to love them, and you'll have happy bees, which also is stuff you're going to use for your teas, you know, and so that's all just naturally. I mean, we put the term entrepreneurial to it, and this is the Entrepreneurs Podcast, and we do fall forward and we make moves, but you're doing them naturally because it makes sense. So that's a compliment. I can see it. I can see it, honestly. It's amazing compared to where...
If you can see it, that's good.
Yeah.
For me, I think Roland can probably see it too. So I'm very detail-oriented. So I'm all about, you know, which herb, and like I said, I can sit there and read Materia Medica, I don't know, whatever. It's about for hours and just get like, oh my God, this is so cool, and, you know, get very in my head with it. And so in terms of that, like, I am great at the operations because, you know, I can tell you every lot number and every ingredient and however, Roland's much more big picture. So I should probably ask him, you know, how he sees this company going. And I'm sure if you ask me where I see this company going, our ideas would be so far apart. However, they'd probably merge in the long run, which is weird that, you know, now that you're saying that, because Roland does talk. Like, he talks very big, and his plans are very grand. And my plans are much more like, this is what I need to do to get through the day. So I think that, you know, you sound a little bit more like Roland in talking about that. And it probably is true. I don't step out of it to see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the same with Deborah and I. I'm very big picture, and I can see the vision, and I usually, even before I can see it, something happening, I know that I have to go in that direction. And she's good at getting all the details along the way and executing the small things along the way, for sure. I'm not saying I don't get a lot of things done during the day. I'm able to see the bigger picture differently, though both of us are entrepreneurs. You know, Deborah's had her own success and stuff like that, and I've had my own success, but together we've had even greater success. So it's just one of those things where you are actually seeing the big picture. You just don't look at it that way. And I say the same thing to Deborah. It's just I'm able to visualize it, and I'm able to sit with it differently. But you're actually seeing it in the actions you're taking, because you're talking about the bees and stuff. You're just in the day-to-day stuff where it matters. But compared to where you were a year ago, compared to where you guys are now, I mean, that's not... I mean, yes, you were building the factory, but you're now in the honey, you're now the tea garden, and the steps you made the first 4 years you were in business doing herbal teas compared to the steps you've done from a year till now.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it just took us a long time to get there, but I think that's okay. Like I said, I mean, you know, I don't think we really looked at ourselves as a business or as experts or as whatever it is in the field until this past year. And really building out the factory and the facility and having gained all of that knowledge, and then all of it that comes with it, you know, the organic certification, applying to be like a woman, we have our WBENC certificate, going through USDA BioPreferred. I mean, all of this has seasoned me in a way that, you know, makes me feel like, okay, now I actually know much more about business. Now I know where we need to go. Now I can kind of see how we can make money with it and things like that, and being able to offer whatever advice that I can. And, you know, I do, and being a co-packer, you know, for me too, that's also about building relationships, which is, I love too. I'm not a salesman, and I would tell Roland, and he's like, you are. And we fight about it all the time, because sales is like the thing I dislike the most about being an entrepreneur. And however, I feel like it's what I spend most of my time on. And I think that I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs love the sales aspect, but when I look at it, like I had a lady call yesterday and she was looking for a co-packer, but she wanted a bottler, not somebody that does tea bags. But I guess just knowing and having talked to so many other businesses, I was able to help her with that. And I'm like, I don't even know how I know this information, but I just feel like I've been in the industry so long that I could give her some suggestions and some guidance, even though it's not even what we do. And, I think that, in that respect, I feel like seasoned and more of a business person and more of a consultant and able to help, that a year ago, I don't think I would have known any of this either because, co-packers, I'm like, I don't know. But just learning all of this stuff this past year has been a huge growth. I do have to say something. It keeps on popping in my head. When you were talking about entrepreneurs, I don't know, like I feel like if I had a dime for every time people tell me to go on Shark Tank, I would be very rich. And like oh my God, it drives me crazy. But like even my uncle's like, well, you should go on Shark Tank. And I'm like, why? Well, that's, why? Because I'm not, just building a business to then hand it off and turn it so I can start something else, Like this is just something that's taken a really long time for us to grow. And it's, and once, and to become experts, it takes years, and I just feel like I'm not building something just so I can quote unquote flip it, And I think that, people say that and it drives me crazy, but I think when people think of an entrepreneur, they think of like, oh, you're doing this so you can go on Shark Tank? No.
Yeah. No, I think that, and that's an interesting perspective because I do know that perspective. And I will say one of the other things is I don't think I don't want to put it this way because I want to be careful how I put it, but the words that are coming to my mind are, you don't really, one, understand what I'm doing, and two, you don't appreciate how much effort and time and blood, sweat, and tears it's taken to get me here,
yeah.
As an entrepreneur. And I'm doing this because I want to do this for the long run. It's not something where I'm in it just to make money.
Yeah, and absolutely, and you have to be, I don't know how, again, it's like, there are people who are entrepreneurs and they can start businesses and, that's their calling. And like, and I look at them and I'm in awe because, here I am, I struggle with my own little company and, I don't say hate, that's a horrible word. Sales is not my, thing really per se in the traditional sense of the word. And, there's all of this stuff that goes along with thinking that, you're an entrepreneur. And then there's me. And that's why when you started it off saying that I have an entrepreneurial spirit, I'm like, I don't know. Like I never thought of it that way. And I think because I'm so locked into that definition of, someone out there flipping businesses, making money, doing the sales, the rainmaker, like that's not who I am. I'm just someone who is just really obsessed with tea and herbs and making the absolute best quality that I can, and also having it make money for us and being able to help other people along the way. And I think that's kind of where I'm at versus just somebody who makes tea, which I was before we really had this factory and had the, financial investment now that we have. And so, we have to pay off this equipment. We have, a lease we have to, pay every month, and I have to hire help that I have to pay and things like that. So, a year ago we weren't in that position. So definitely our mindset about how we're running the business has changed for sure.
Yeah, I have 3 things for you, Andi, on this topic, actually. The first thing is you are that person that starts businesses and is a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. You've done the co-packing, you're doing the honey, which even though it's a new brand, it has the potential to spin off into something entirely of its own. And then you're also vertically integrating just by doing the business. And that's what entrepreneurs do. And I think, when I look at the definition, and I actually, and maybe not everyone knows this, is anyone can try to sign up for the podcast and be on it. I invite anyone on there, but it depends on the right entrepreneur that we allow on here. And I got to be careful how I say this, because not everyone, we have people that have $100 million businesses, we have people that have $5,000 businesses on the podcast. But what they all have in common is the spirit in which to work and drive a business forward, not build a business and just turn it over. And there are plenty of people that do that. And while I do consider them entrepreneurs, I consider them more value add and dump specialists versus creative entrepreneur specialists. So in the definition that I consider to be an actual entrepreneur, it's someone who's building a business for the long run, that doesn't want to sell it, that even down the road is trying to build something. There's value add and dump specialists, and there's actual entrepreneurs. So in my mind, because I don't, and I've built some businesses and sold some, so it's not like I haven't value added in dumping, but I'm also an entrepreneur in food. And when it came to food, I've stuck through the entrepreneur journey. In the businesses that I value added and dumped, I wasn't being an entrepreneur. I wasn't being creative. I was just trying to add as much value as I could because I wanted money. You know what I mean? And
no, I understand. And I don't want to say I don't want to attach anything negative to that. It's just not who we are. And I feel like, now because of whatever shows out there, people think that, anybody can just go on whatever and just get some funding and, or you just go online and you apply and, somebody hands you $1 million and then, you're off and running. And I think, that's where it comes to me that, it just, for me, it clearly did not happen that way. And if it did happen for anybody that way, I wish they would tell me what the secret sauce is because, I don't know.
I've never seen it myself. It takes so much work. So much work.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. That's why I'm being sarcastic. Clearly I know. And I think that the other thing is that for me, thinking from big picture, everything has been fairly organic. And even when I look at my life, and I have been able to do this, to step out of my life and look at my life, I don't even know how to say this. Basically my whole life has set me up for this point. And I know that, everybody can say that. But when I look back at my life and why certain things were such a struggle for me, it's almost been like I was just never meant to walk that traditional path. I had to do this. It wasn't a thing it was a choice. And, it was life gets to a point where you have to do it because it doesn't give you any other options. Does that make sense?
I'm almost tempted to stop the podcast right there and let you drop the mic and walk off the stage because that was 100% spot on. I think it's so many people can relate to that and they don't understand it. It's because, and I had the same struggle. I struggled when I first got out and I tried to go mainstream America, what everyone expected of me, and call me rebellious. People call me stupid. Bizzarro, what are you doing? Why don't you get a real job? Why don't you sell that? What is this stupid food thing you're doing? There was a lot of that stuff, and at first people seem supportive and then they oh, how lucky are you when you actually start succeeding? You're like, there was no luck. It was all a lifetime of preparing for this moment. And but I think it's what you said is spot on. And the other thing that I think that you said that was spot on earlier is that you like building relationships, but you don't like sales. And I think a lot of people suffer from this, and it took me a lot of years as an entrepreneur before I realized this, is that actually I never have to sell anything. I don't go out and sell our businesses ever. I don't sell our products. I don't actually even have a sales team. We don't have any of that. But what we do have is we have a group of people that develop business and manage client relations. And through that, we build relationships. And when you build relationships with people and they buy your products. They come to you for co-packing. They come to you, and they like the relationships and they like the people, and that's that's why you can sell your company. Your company never does as well and grows as well unless it's you running it. Everyone can tell me something different, but I've never seen it. And the truth is that I think you, Andi, build relationships. I mean, you took a huge leap of faith by being the first interview on this podcast because we had built a relationship through the Flavor of Georgia. And
no, I understand that, but I never looked at it as a risk.
Yeah.
Which is, I just was like, oh my God. I mean, I guess I always saw it as an opportunity. And I think that's the thing too, is that there was never a risk. I mean, what's the risk?
I love that. Keep going. I like where you're going with this.
No, but I mean, I think that, from my standpoint, here's the thing. I mean, I cannot tell you, if I listened to statistics and risks and this and that, I would honestly still be working at some advertising agency miserable. I mean, I think that and again, it's like just my life and how my life has manifested. But, I don't want to age myself, but I didn't get married till I was 40. I had kids when I literally had a doctor tell me I had less than a 1% of chance of having kids, and I have 2. So, I mean, it's like one of those things. And, I think that if you listen to all the naysayers in your life and you think about everything like the risks and what's going to happen and this and that, and trust me, I do. I am the most neurotic person in the entire world. Just ask my family. But I think that when it comes to doing what I have to do, you can't look at it as a risk. And I'll give you another example, because if I do look at it as a risk, then I would never do it. So here's an example of something that's going on right now that I'm kind of in a quandary, and I feel like, oh my God, should I do it? I don't know. This is ridiculous. And, this is what goes through my head. We were supposed to go to Natural Food Expo, and we didn't, and it's a long story, and this is kind of what ended up making us rethink this whole retail strategy.
Are you talking about the Natural Food Expo in California in 2 weeks? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So we were supposed to go, and we didn't end up going, and we got a grant, and we didn't get the grant, and whatever. And at that point, I think I had it. And I was starting, and this was also, a few months before, we had heard that we're in Kroger Georgia Grown, that they were closing the Georgia Grown segment. And then a month before that, we had to fire our broker. So I would say that things have kind of been saying, like, retail it ain't your thing, sweetie. And so, it took a couple slaps in the face for us to rethink the strategy of where we're going. But like I said, I'm so much happier now that I don't have to deal with that part of I don't have to kind of focus on retail. Let's leave it at that. But I mean, not, big box retail. I'm sorry. I love the specialty stores we're in and that part of retail. But, I don't have to focus on those larger stores and deal with that. However, oh my God, I totally lost my train of thought. This is horrible. Wait, I remember. So anyway, we didn't get into Natural Food Expo. And so it was weird. I mean, I was kind of depressed about it. And then a couple of days later, I just got over it because I started doing work and forgot about it. And Roland mentioned to me, he's like, yeah, he goes, you know what's weird? He said, there's like this show that I remember that I did when I was at Ritz-Carlton. And it was so weird. And I remember there was like some tea people there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Something with Ritz. And so he goes, yeah, it was the International Restaurant Food Show. Yeah. And we ended up figuring it out. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Well, it's the same exact weekend as Natural Food Expo. And it's in New York. And I looked, and as part of that International Food Expo show, they have a coffee and tea expo attached to it. And we have really been looking at ways to build this food service portion. And so I'm like, well, I'll just call them up and see if they have any booths. And this was, like I said, probably in October. I mean, it was, and they're like, yeah, we have some booths available. We have one half booth available. And I'm like, well, how much is a half booth? I mean, with not that expensive. And I'm like, fine, we'll take the last half booth. So we signed up for the last half booth, and I really have kind of forgotten about it until recently. Now I'm having to gear up for it. And, I'm starting to gear up for it and, go to New York and everything. And I have a dog, and I had this dog before I met my husband. The dog's 12 years old. And 2 or 3 days ago, it was last week, she just wasn't feeling well. I took her to the vet, and she has sarcoma, I think. And so she has very few weeks, if that, to live. And so now I'm at the point where I don't want to go to the show. I was such an idiot. Why did I sign up for the show? I don't think, and so because, I don't know, what to do.
You're making me cry. Jesus. Go on.
I know. It's horrible. And I was crying. That's why you called me and you said I was walking my dog. I took her to this place, this park she likes. Maybe the last time. I'm going to cry too. So anyway, and that's why also you asked me about Flavor of Georgia. I can't even think about Flavor of Georgia because I got to deal with my dog.
Yeah, no, and I would do the same thing. Like, I got to tell you, I would do the same thing. It would make it hard to go to a show. So I don't know what I'm going to do. And, even though, it's been since October since we've had this, and we've been gearing up for it. And I've printed flyers, I've printed this, I've done everything I can do for it. I'm just like, I don't know if I can do it. And again, it's like, I have to take a leap. And the leap is that I have to go to the show and trust that my dog is going to make it those 5 days I'm gone. Yeah.
So, wow. Everything is, I don't know. So, everything is a leap.
Well, I'm going to pray for you because I want you to have that time with your dog because I know how much that means. That's pretty amazing. And on another note, I did go to that international food show. I've been there a number of years, but I did go last year, and I remember the whole coffee and tea section, and it's incredible. It's an incredible experience.
I really do want to go, and I think from our standpoint, we're going for a few specific reasons. We're going there clearly to talk to hotels, but more importantly, to get to know some of these little coffee shops that are around the country.
Yep.
And I think for us, it could be a really good thing. And the irony is that I was so depressed that we didn't get into natural products, but oh my God. And then the same weekend was this other show, and it's been so easy to do, and I don't have to fly to California. However, clearly circumstances in my life have kind of made me, question, but, it's just, you never know. Even once something looks like an opportunity's been taken away, a lot of times it just opens the door for even a better opportunity. Or like I said, it's like life guiding you where you should be, not where you think you should be.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's 100% so true. It's just moving forward, and sometimes you have to pivot, and sometimes you may have not gone the right direction, but at least you try to go that direction, and it's not an option anymore. So
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, for us, switching from the whole retail focus thing, and I know tons of people that do it, and tons of people that are successful at it, and I'm in awe of it. And I'm glad that they're there. However, for us, it was just not working, and that's okay too, And like I said, but as we, built the factory, it's like the energy of our business changed. Therefore, our thinking had to change, and our business model had to change, and everything kind of for us had to pivot. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, and like I said, I wish you the best, and seriously, that's such a tough situation, and obviously I've been there, and now our new dog, and new being 6 years old, still feels new, because when you go through hardship, and you get a new one, they're always not the same as the old one, but you have a different bond with them. I guess it's like children. You have a different relationship with each of them. But go ahead.
I was going to say, she's my very first dog that I ever had. So yeah, but
what's her name?
Bamboozle.
Oh, I love that.
It's like she bamboozled her way into my heart.
Yeah.
And that's why.
That's the same with, we have a small Cocker Spaniel, and it's Brutus, because like Et tu, Brute, and you will, he made such an impact on my life.
Aw.
And so, I wish you guys the best, and I will definitely pray that everything works out, because I think it's so important, what you said. And one of the things, Andi, that I just want to say, and I think this is a good time to talk about, is you were talking about a leap of faith, okay? And I think we should talk about this, speaking of your leap of faith. So here I am, I reach out to you to do this podcast, which merely at the time, I'm not even sure where it's going to go. And a year ago, if anyone remembers, we recorded during a snowstorm also in Colorado, because I had to go out and get a cord because we had a cord that didn't work. So Andi pushed the episode back again for me, which has sort of been this experience again. So we're keeping tradition. But out of 132 episodes we recorded last year, including my own Motivational Mondays that I recorded, you are 8 of all time so far, number 8. If I take away the Motivational Mondays, you're number 6. And so the first thing is you don't even know it, but you'll be getting an award for your ranking for 2019 at our summit that we're doing in Milledgeville, June 3rd and 4th. For the Food and Beverage Entrepreneurs Summit, because even though it's a get-together of the summer, we're also going to do awards for the podcast. So that is one of the things you're getting an award for. And then also, we thought it would be the right thing to do to get you an award. And there's other people that are getting awards, but I feel like it's the right thing to tell you now for being the first one to take that leap of faith, because you were the first mover. And while sometimes that can be bad, you took a huge leap of faith of being the first person on the podcast. And whether you know it or not, because you did the first podcast and we were able to release yours as the first, it allowed other people to have confidence in what we were doing. So other people were willing to do it. But no one else was willing to do it until you signed up and did your first. So I thought that was pretty cool. And you deserve to be recognized for that.
Well, I'm glad I could push it along.
Yeah. And then the other... Go ahead.
I said, even though I really didn't do much, but go ahead.
Yeah, but here's the other thing that's interesting about your podcast. And every once in a while, we have an episode that all of a sudden blossoms later, where it catches on and people start sharing it. So your podcast was not a top podcast until November of last year. And then around the holidays, someone caught on to it and spread it like wildfire. And it's still going to this day. So this new year, okay, let's talk about the new year. For this year, since January, your podcast is number 1 so far.
Woohoo!
The first one you go. Yeah. So this year, even though we released it last year on January 25th, for some reason, your podcast is trending right now. So a lot of that has to do with people looking for you and searching for you. It hasn't like we promoted or we pushed it out there anymore other than the first one. But it's showing that people are starting to look at your business and search you online and finding the episodes. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I think that's cool too. Clearly I'm excited, and I'm excited for you too to do more of the podcast. And I love the whole podcast world. And, I think it's great that you're doing it. And I was excited when I saw your summit too. I know I mentioned it to you before, and I hope that, you said that. I know that you're saying it's selling out, which is good, which I think is important too, because, from my perspective, I greatly appreciate any kind of venue where I can get together with other food entrepreneurs, just because, it helps my sanity, right? And, to be able to kind of connect. But I think that anytime you do it, there's ideas that are shared. And like I said, like this beverage co-packer that I got, that I was able to pass information on to somebody else for. You never know when you're going to need other information or have a card that you're going to hand to somebody else. I think that it's just always good to get together and just to listen to other people's stories and ask questions about what they do, because like I said, it's interesting and you get to have a new friend. But I think, again, from a business perspective, you never know.
Yeah, and I think, and it's interesting you say that because this summit, and we're planning on doing many of them because we've got a lot of requests to do something like this through everybody that's on the podcast and people we're going to be interviewing. It seems to be a common topic, but it's all about, we're going to focus on collaboration and how we work together and support each other in the food and beverage industry to help each other grow. And I said this on the last podcast with Rusty Bowers from Pine Street Market, is that 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 when it comes to building businesses. 1 plus 1 actually equals 3, especially if you can collaborate and help each other or create a collaborated product or whatever it is. You then benefit off each other, and then you have a third thing, and that's sort of what's happened with you, is that you're, in your own way, you've created your own vertical integration. So 1 plus 1, it may look like you created 2 businesses, but you've actually created a third out of it, in that, okay, I have teas, I'm going to produce my own teas, but now I'm also going to co-package someone else's teas. So it's, it's a little bit of a cool concept, but collaborating being the bigger picture, based on what you said. So thank you for bringing that up. And just so you know, I've held 2 tickets for you and Roland.
Thank you.
So when you guys go online and you'll fill out your ticket, no matter if they're sold out or not, once you put in your email address, and you go online and you ask for 2 tickets, it'll automatically give them to you because I've held them for you. So, because we talked about that. And just so everyone knows, we basically have 650 tickets available. They are free. It is for 2 days. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner is provided the 2 days. But what's kind of crazy is we've only soft pushed it out there, and we just started really marketing it over the last 3 days. And we're over 300 tickets sold out of the 650 that are available. So if anyone's listening and you want to go, I recommend getting to Eventbrite or looking at our Facebook and Instagram pages and getting your tickets. But Andi, you don't have to worry about that. I have them held for you. So,
thank you.
Andi, as we wrap things up, which we didn't even really dive into it. One is I'd like to get you back on the podcast after you go to New York relatively soon, because I'd like to hear about your experience with the trade show and share it with the audience. And number 2, I'd like you to get back on, because one of the things I really want to dive into is everything you've learned about business and grown in the details that you're so detail oriented in, as you vertically integrated and opened the co-packing factory and things like that. So if you would, I'd love to set up something with you in maybe April to do another podcast, and we can talk about it in April, since I know your schedule's all over the place, as is mine. But we can do that if that'd be okay with you.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I mean, and it just forces me to be extra diligent at the trade show. So I'll try to, pay attention to what I'm seeing, and absorb as much as I can so I can bring it back and share. So for sure. Awesome.
And so as we wrap up, Andi, will you first tell everyone where they can find you online in your website and social media? And then after that, just anything you feel you'd want to share just openly that you thought the audience may benefit off of, that'd be great also.
So you can go to BironTeas.com, and that's where we sell our teas. And we have links to Biron Hospitality and Biron Co-Packing on Biron Teas. So you can kind of get a full picture from all 3 of our websites there. Gosh, I don't know. I feel so much pressure, to say something super important, but I don't what I have to share. I mean, I think, honestly, the takeaway, I think, from this conversation, for me, what I have to share is that you just you have to have some kind of faith. And to be an entrepreneur, the biggest thing you need, besides smarts, besides business savvy, is you need faith. And that is what gets you through these leaps that you have to say, or whatever it may be, or kind of gets you to take that first step that may be scary and you have no idea where it's going to go. But if you have faith in whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, in yourself and a higher power and whatever, that is what you need to succeed as an entrepreneur. That's the one necessary element.
And I love that. And we're going to stop right there because I think it's so important. Takeaway, faith. And we'll leave it there. And thank you, Andi, for joining us on the podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. And everyone, have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.